How are we doing, everyone? My apologies for the late start. We were having some internet updates that we needed to get on. It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Richie, here with my guy, Mr. Idris Salam, a.k.a. Bosco from the Bronx. NFL schedule release. It's official. Shouts out to some of my friends who are Giant fans. They actually hit me with the schedule earlier today. And it was exactly accurate. Usually with the leaks, they get some of this stuff wrong, but they got it right. And it's essentially, I think the only confusion that I did have was Philly week 18 versus week 7. Which way was it going to be and who was going to be home?
Yeah.
We're going to hit on my thoughts with regard to the Stanley Cup playoffs and where everybody is lined up right now. I think we did a pretty detailed job of hitting on the NBA New York Knickerbockers. So I think tonight we give the Knickerbockers a rest because they need the rest.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep it specific to the other teams that are going to be in the mix for hockey as well as the NBA. Zappy Stars are currently trying to close out the Colorado Avalanche. We're going to hit on the updates for that. In the NBA, the Boston Celtics have eliminated the Cleveland Cavaliers. They punched the first ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals. They await the winner of the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. Zappy is back. We thought momentarily that he may have been abducted. That is not the case.
Yeah. Wish it was that.
No, it was just funny. I was like, where'd he go, man? I was like, I hope he didn't fall or forget that, just forgot. We will be back. Enjoy this intro. And thank you, NFL. I really love Dallas and Cleveland back to back with a 4-day rest period. Never fails.
Welcome to the show, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I don't know what's going on with them, but they're here.
Thank you.
He froze up there.
Thank you, Idris. I always do my due diligence to read the private chat.
All right.
Okay,
anyway,
we're gonna leave that one
alone. Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am one of the co-hosts besides Mike Zappy. I'm Bosco from the Bronx. And we got the host of the show, Richie Hicks Jr. He's checking things out because that's what he is. He does due diligence. That's him. The man, the myth, the legend.
Mike Zappy with the matching headphones, which I'm not going to say I'm digging, but they do match your uniform, so I guess that's cool.
Yeah, pretty dope.
It kind of looks like he's calling plays. And, you take the beard away, and he does kind of resemble the former Cowboy coach, Mr. Kellen Moore. If you really take an honest look at Zappy, I could see it a little. I could see it just enough. And speaking of those Dallas Cowboys, they are going to be featured quite a bit this year with the schedule release. Zappy and I, amongst our text thread, share a similar view on one particular game regarding the Dallas Cowboys. And that is the sheer fact that opening in Cleveland, while they are playing a top-notch defense, it's a hell of a lot better than having to go there in the worst part of winter because it is so very difficult to throw the football in that stadium when things are really just tundra-like, And I know, Zappy, that there were a couple of other things that you noticed on your Cowboys schedule that you feel is favorable when it comes down to positioning yourself for a potential NFC East crown. Yet again.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Never did I think that I was going to see Cleveland week 1 followed by Pittsburgh week 5, our 2 road playoff games. I'm sorry, road AFC games, and for both of the cold weather games to be early part of the schedule, it blew my mind. I'm like, all right, well, that is actually a huge for us. The only cold weather game this team has at the end of the season is Philadelphia. And that's week 17, the same week that they decided to go ahead and schedule the Lions versus the 49ers. I like that. It's the intriguing part about everything, But all in all, looking at the team schedule, I actually like the schedule. I like the way it's spread out, everything.
Okay, now I know you're playing the Steelers. What week is that now, Zap?
Week 5.
Interesting. Yeah, you catch another break there. Now that is in Pittsburgh, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Both of those are.
You catch a significant break there as well, because, like I said, another North team, another place where it is that weather can be very difficult, and you're getting them in a pretty decent time. Because if you look at Pittsburgh last year, in particular games at home, most of their plights at home happened in the early going of the year before they started gaining some of their personal traction. Because I noticed with the Steelers, if you're going to get them in Pittsburgh, it's usually September, October, at least for recent history value.
Yeah, and you look at this team that also went through a lot of transition from the quarterback, the offensive coordinator. And when you look at a team like Pittsburgh, a team that I think is going to be there right at the end as one of the teams that could be one of the finalists in the AFC. But I think they're going to be a damn good team. But when I look at Pittsburgh, they're one of those teams that I rather play early. And it just so happens that we're getting that.
Good take there. We're going to get to predictions as we get a little further along into this. Idris, Giants schedule. We're not going to be facing Saquon Barkley until week 7. Yeah. I saw certain Giant fans chuckling about that and be like, oh, cool, we're not going to play him this year probably because he's usually hurt by week 7. Yeah, I did see some Giant fans, with the humor. I personally don't wish injury on anyone, and I do believe that Saquon Barkley, with the upgraded offensive line and with the array of weapons that the Philadelphia Eagles do have, should be able to stay healthy and have himself a pretty decent year. At least in my opinion, I think that's the case. It's early, Idris. But what stands out to you in this Giants schedule moving forward? And I guess the second part of the question is any particular game that you got your eye on that you want to go to? Because unfortunately, the Giants are not coming to your home city.
Yeah. The good thing about it, we don't have a gauntlet like we had last year. Our first 10 games are just insane. We played 3 games in like 2 weeks. We played the best of the best, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Eagles. I mean, right out the gate, we was getting hit to where this year, we got the Texans. We'll be tough, but we got them at home, the Commanders, the Vikings. Of course, we go to Cleveland just like Dallas does. And then we got Dallas towards the end of the month. The game I'm looking to attend is Pittsburgh and the one in Atlanta.
Pittsburgh happens so rare. Atlanta would be cool for sure, and it's not that far.
Actually, the Giants come to the Panthers this year.
Unfortunately, that's going to be in Germany.
That's right. Dang.
Yeah, I myself was a little bummed out when I saw that because I was thinking, oh, cool, Carolina, and you live out there. I'm like, that's going to be a cool trip. We of course have a mutual friend out in the ATL, so that potentially could be good. The Steelers, number one, I wouldn't call it a rivalry because it's not, but it's always a cool game when the Steelers and Giants lock horns for the sheer fact that, number one, you have a family that intertwines the two organizations.
Yeah.
And most recent history where I would say the games had the highest value would be the Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning eras. And 08 was quite a classic, as was 04, splitting those games in each other's stadiums. Back then it was still Giant Stadium, not MetLife. And the interconference is what I think is going to be tough for the G-men here. You're talking about playing a very, very good Ravens team. You're talking about just in general a good division. But what I will say is Cincinnati, while they have a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, they have a propensity for getting off to a bit of a slow start. They're usually not really hitting their stride until November. I noticed that the G-men have them at home, and do not quote me on this, but if I am not mistaken, the Cincinnati Bengals have never defeated the New York Giants in New Jersey.
Nope.
And up until 2020, the Giants had never won in Cincinnati. They did win that game. Daniel Jones was injured in that game. Colt McCoy came in for relief, got us the dub. Another rarity game. Phil Simms' greatest game of his career, not named Super Bowl 21, was against these Cincinnati Bengals. Not these, but, the Cincinnati Bengals. And oddly enough, the Giants lost that game. Little history tidbit for you. Simms threw for over 500 in that one in an era where you never saw those kind of games. So it goes without saying, I think the AFC North is the creme de la creme of divisions in the AFC. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that any of that's easy. But the division is going to be interesting. You have a new look backfield for Philadelphia headed by Saquon Barkley. Dallas Cowboys going to be going running back by committee, but still a very talented team that has a revamped O-line. You have the Washington Commanders, who, in my opinion, drafted the best of the bunch in terms of instant talent in the form of Jaden Daniels. They signed Austin Eckler. That's a new look defense. They are working that O-line out. One of the worst units in the league, along with our Giants last year. So the division, quite frankly, I'd be pleased, thrilled actually, if we were able to go 500 within our own division. This is what the Giants need to do if they're going to super over exceed expectations, make a playoff appearance. This is what needs to happen. It goes without saying that you need to stay healthy, particularly on the offensive line, because we saw the true nightmare that went down when that line was constantly battered. They went out and got themselves two quality linemen that do not miss a lot of games. Right. Jermaine Ellimore, as well as John Runyon Jr. JMS, John Michael Schmidt, I think that he is prime for a good sophomore season. His rookie year was a mixed bag, but, a lot of that is trial under fire, not to mention all the different quarterbacks. Andrew Thomas, all-pro talent, missed, 11 games, I believe, last year? He needs to stay healthy. Evan Neal, kind of the wild card on that line, but I do believe that you may very well see Evan Neal pushed next to Andrew Thomas to slow the game down a bit for him, and I do believe that he is not completely done. He may actually succeed. Devin Singletary brings a guy who breaks a lot of tackles. He is consistent. No Giant fans. He is not Saquon Barkley. He is not as explosive as Saquon. If I'm going to give him something, he shows up for work, lunch pail and all. If there's something that I think Singletary does better than Barkley, two things. I think he hits the holes more responsibly in terms of taking what he gets, where Barkley's more of the home run hitting type. I think Singletary brings, I already said it, a very good value in terms of breaking tackles. That is important. But this is going to have to be a backfield that is going to be a committee-based situation. I think and I expect Singletary to do what he normally does, get you about 850 on the ground, which is more than respectable, and keep that yard per carry around where it is, which oddly enough is on par with Mr. Barkley. Neighbors, controversial amongst Giant fans. A lot of Giant fans, I think, wanted to go quarterback, even if some people viewed McCarthy as a reach. They did try to make the Drake May deal. New England wanted their man, and New England got their man. That's Drake May. Giants stayed put at 6, and they got Malik Neighbors out of LSU. I know that the media early on did their due diligence to make a point about, do these guys have the ability to coexist, Mr. Jones, Mr. Neighbors? And, it also didn't help matters when Malik Neighbors in his first interviews, I personally think it was nerves, but he said Janiel Dones.
Yeah.
The gun charge, that's something that worries people. It was dismissed. I think that he has the highest ceiling of Mr. Harrison as well as Mr. Odunze, but that is a risk, and it could obviously bring back the scary memories of what happened to our Super Bowl hero, Plaxico Burress. But, I think it's a good situation. He gives the Giants something they haven't had in a very long time, a legitimate person to worry about at wide receiver 1. Darius Slayton, not happy with his current contract. I think the New York Giants may deal Slayton and put a little more on Hyatt with an expectation to make the number 2 spot. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is your slot man. We also have Isaiah McKenzie, who was a career slot man. And these are guys that work into this Dable system. What gets me excited is the defense, though. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Bobby Okereke coming off a career season. I think they did a responsible job of revamping their secondary. I like the Tyler Nubin pickup.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Draft pick, I should say, not pick up, draft pick. I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's ass. This is supposed to be a rebuilding year. But what I'm worried about, the only thing I'm worried about, is when the 17 games are over, are the New York Giants going in a better direction? Last year, I saw 3 quarterbacks get injured. I saw a gauntlet of a schedule to start. I saw an offensive line battered, tattered, and bruised. I saw a former All-Pro running back miss over a month. And we only won 6 games after being a game away from the NFC title game the year before, on which most football people, no matter who you root for, saw as a massive overachievement. The jury's still out on Jones. But I do believe that if you're going to fully assess and figure out if this guy has anything more than this year, you have to at least be honest with yourself and say, did we get him the guy he needed? That guy is Malik Neighbors. So that's where I'm at with the Giants right now. I think there's a lot of questions. I'm going to say super exceeding expectation would be a 10-win season. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say super failure of a season would be 3 to 4 wins. And right where they should be, I'm going to say anywhere between 6 and 8. And I'm going to predict them. I'm going to predict them to go 7 and 10 this year. And I think it's a reasonable prediction this early on. 7 and 10 for our G-men for now. 3 and 3 in the. I'm going to go 2 and 4 in the division. I'll be humble. I'll say that we still can't win one against Philly and Dallas, even though I'm not completely convinced that we can't snag one against Philly. We'll have to see. But for now, status quo. We'll figure out a way to sweep Washington. We usually do. And we're going to split. We're going to get swept by the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys for now. I'm going to give them that ultimate respect for now. Those are the 2 teams that should be playing for the division title, barring a massive injury to either one of their main star quarterbacks.
Everything you said, man. I like Nubin. The draft of Tyler Nubin, I think he's going to help our defense. John Runyon Jr., I mean, yeah, we need our O-line because Evan Neal, hopefully he'll bounce back this year and say, okay, hey, let me be the guy they drafted,
Right.
I think with Daniel Jones, I think he knows this is his last hurrah.
Oh yeah, it's inevitable. He either wins this organization over.
Yeah, You either do your thing or you're gone. That's it.
And the reason I still have hope, regardless, this team's not going to be able to run the ball the way they did to the tune of being number 4 in the league
no.
in 2022. But what this team can do better
Mm-hmm.
and what could be encouraging is that they might be able to get vertical now and actually pass the ball at a ratio that's not truly embarrassing.
Yeah. I'm calling, I say between 6 and 8 wins. I said 7 and 10. We could get to 8 because, there's always a game that will sneak one out.
Mm-hmm.
But if we win 8 games, okay. 10 is a stretch, of course.
Absolutely, right now,
But, I say 6 to 8. I'm going 7, maybe 8.
8 would be terrific, and it's not a playoff berth. I mean, it could be, but it's probably not. But 8 wins will definitely have the fan base feeling pretty decent. Only the first year without Saquon, where everybody wants to have a freaking.
I think we'll get one out of Philly. I'm gonna tell you why I think we get one out of Philly. Remember they had that dream team some years ago with Vic, Vince Young, and all that.
Nnamdi Asomugha,
who got roasted every time.
Steve Smith, former Giant, went there.
Former John Steve Smith. I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on that all-star team. I don't even think I don't think even with Dallas's losses, I don't even think they're good enough to beat Dallas. I think Dallas still mops the floor with them. Because even though they don't have Dan Quinn as a DC, they still got some of them players. Deron Bland, Diggs comes back.
Diggs is going to be a big.
I mean, they had Mike Zimmer too, which is a good DC.
Yeah.
I mean, but the reason why I think Philly's going to be better is not because of who's they're retaining players wise or the head coach, but because of the additions of Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore as their OC and DC. That was their biggest let up last year, not having those coordinators, and now they get 2 compatible coordinators that can come in and actually control that team. So that's the one thing you got to also remember with Philly. As for the Giants, guys, no. You guys are – unless if Carolina has the expectation of what a lot of people think and it's going to be a very bad season again because Bryce Young is just not that guy, honestly, the Giants are going to be right there with the Panthers racing for who is it going to be Shador, Jalen Milroe, or Quinn Ewers for the number 1 pick, number 2 pick, number 3 pick. That's honestly where I see the Giants with this team. I look at the schedule. You guys have a tough schedule. And this is me. I have no fight in this again. But like even the Minnesota game, while, you're facing Sam Darnold, roster to roster, they have a better roster. And then you go to Washington. Washington's going to be a much improved team. Go to Cleveland. That's a doghouse. Then Dallas at home. Yeah, it's a break, but it's still Dallas at home. Seattle is one that you can easily win, but easily lose as well. Then you have another tough stretch of Cincy, Philly, Pittsburgh. I mean, I right now I see your basement would be 3 and 14. Your max, in my opinion, is 7 and 10. I don't see much out of this team right now. I don't too many question marks. Obviously, you draft Malik Neighbors, but now your number 1 and number 2 receivers are a first and second year guy, one that is unproven, another that didn't really show much his first season either. You still have question marks about Darren Waller. Yeah, Devin Singletary is a guy, but I think Devin Singletary is a good guy when he has an accomplice with him. Right now, you guys still have question marks at the running back position. I mean, I think this is one of those years that expectations are going to be low for the Giants, and if you can get to 7 wins, that's a great time. But I just don't see it on their schedule right now. I don't see it. And a lot of it has to do with, we're talking about Daniel Jones, a guy coming off a serious injury, a guy that, well, he had he did have an improvement 2 years ago. Coming off an injury sets him back drastically.
Especially
with the mental.
We got the black. What's his name though?
Well, the white one's his name. Yeah, well, Drew Lock. Truthfully,
I mean, we got the white Geno Smith. I mean,
truthfully, if you look at Drew Lock's skill set,
the white Geno Smith,
it does fit Brian Dable's system. The reason why I don't have him as low as the way Zappy sees it is because, number 1, I think we have a better defensive coordinator in terms of the talent that he's going to be coaching. Shane Bowen, what I like about Bowen is that he has an emphasis for really being about ball hockey. And a lot of the talent that's on this team are guys that can play on both sides, more of a hybrid kind of scenario. I mean, I like that we're bringing back Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
When I think about this, how broken this offense was last year, and yes, that's with Saquon Barkley because he did play too. Now he's not there. I get Zappy's point, unproven, year 1, year 2, solid point, and one that needs to be credited. That is a good point. But when I think about the fact that the defense has 2 guys that are going to probably put up some decent sack numbers this year. When I think about that, I think we're going to be a little more responsible on defense. While I do like the league leading tie with the Baltimore Ravens in takeaways, I don't like the over blitzing where I feel that sometimes you gave people a lot of cheap field goals and most definitely cheap first downs. Dexter Lawrence, all pro. He's an all pro. I think the defense is actually close to being a very good unit. While I hear Zappy about Daniel Jones and the ceiling and this and that, I don't see the schedule as difficult as last year. I don't either. I don't think Seattle's as good as they were last year or the year before last year. The Atlanta Falcons, I don't know. How much do we believe in Kirk Cousins? I think what I do know is that he's not throwing the ball to Addison and Jefferson anymore. He has to elevate those around him. I'm not saying he's not capable.
He did it in Washington, though. That's why he was able to get paid the contract with Minnesota. Let's remember that. The guy has done it year in and year out. He's been a great regular season quarterback. He's just not the playoff guy.
I'm also going to remember.
I was going to say Atlanta, a 7-10 team last year without a competent quarterback. Kirk Cousins is at least competent to get them those 2-3 more wins.
He's got to elevate them, though. The problem over there is that while I do think that they're going to finally make the commitment to running the ball with Bijan and doing things right by him, one of the knocks on Kirk Cousins was that a lot of people felt that he was better with Washington with less talent than he was in Minnesota with more talent. Not necessarily the last couple of years where he was Pro Bowl considered and things of that nature. I'm talking about his first couple of years in Minnesota. Because a lot of people forget this team, Minnesota, this former team, made the NFC title game with Case Keenum. They didn't sniff that with Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins, to your point, very good regular season quarterback. I guess what I'm trying to say is that particular game, just throwing it out there, that's not it's the Falcons, we're losing. Because in a round where the Falcons should have won defense, they got a backup quarterback that's going to be the starter in probably 2-3 years max. I like it. It works for Green Bay all the time. But I do think that the Falcons missed the golden opportunity to add a bona fide defensive star, day one starter. We'll find out down the road. And another thing, too, is Kirk Cousins' injury any less severe than Daniel Jones's? His career, his season.
Yes. It's less severe because DJ, you have to remember, he still has the element of running where Kirk does not. So for that reason, I would say yes.
But I do want to emphasize one more time, I do not think the Giants' approach on offense is going to be more geared towards running the football as they did in previous years. But we'll find out. What
I will say, what the NFL did with the scheduling and all, I love the fact that we're seeing 9 playoff rematches, but I hate the fact that if you really look and break down Philly's schedule, you're looking at a team that is probably not going to get their first loss till week 8, if not week 10. Philly, it is set in stone for them to have the number 1 seed in place. If you really look at their schedule, they're out of all the NFC teams, they don't have a gauntlet, like even a 3-week gauntlet. They don't have that. They don't have anything like that.
But what puts them ahead of Green Bay? What puts them ahead of Detroit?
Well, the fact that they're not playing Green Bay in Green Bay and playing them overseas in Brazil, where Philly, actually in Brazil, there's more Philly fans than there are Packers fans.
Zappy.
No, I'm serious.
I don't care.
You guys are trying to take too much away from Philly.
No,
I think Philly's going to be.
If you're going to give me a metric about fans in Brazil having an outcome about the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles, that's a neutral site through and through.
Yeah, it's a neutral site, but it's not. And I'm telling you this because I've lived overseas and seen international games, and fans are the
Tell
NFL
me
is an international game.
I understand that, Zappy.
I'll say that.
Zappy, I understand that. But tell me about the Philadelphia revamped secondary on how they're going to stop Jordan Love. Tell me about Green Bay's additions. I don't want to hear about the fans in Brazil.
Well, for one, I mean, look at what the Eagles did. I know you guys don't want to admit to it.
I don't have an issue with admitting that. I'm picking them to win the division this year.
Saquon in that backfield makes the difference from them beating Green Bay or losing to Green Bay, whether it's in Brazil or Philly, no matter what. Not to mention, their receiving core is very good. They have probably one of the top 3 trio of receivers in the NFL. Let's get it right. Secondly, yeah, Green Bay, Jordan Love looked amazing in that Dallas game. I think we all know a lot of the reason why. Dan Quinn already had one foot out the door. That defense was not prepared for that game whatsoever. Not taking anything away from Jordan Love. But to the point about the Eagles, yeah, they go out and draft. They're putting Queion Mitchell in there. Cooper DeJean is probably going to be a safety, but Queion Mitchell is a guy I did not want to see to go to that secondary because of his lockdown capabilities. This is a guy that could have easily been drafted as high as Sauce, but because of how high the emphasis was on quarterbacks, receivers, and offensive linemen this year, we saw DBs fall as deep as they did, which is not normal. But we also saw the first defensive player drafted until the late teens. So, those are things to also consider. But Philly is a much improved team. I hate saying it, but they are a much improved team. And when you look at it, and then the big reason why they're a much improved team, again, because of the hiring of 2 coordinators. Vic Fangio is going to fix those things with their secondary. He's going to fix it. And then for them to bring in a great pass rusher out of the Jets, it's going to help that as well. And a good pass rush helps a bad secondary.
May I ask you this?
Yes, sir, always.
Week 1, right? They played week 1?
Yeah.
They got all this shit figured out in week 1? The scheme, the new players, it's all figured out week 1. That's part of the reason I like Green Bay that week.
I agree with everything.
If they're playing in week 10 or week 7, sure.
I agree with what Zappy said, but and I mean, yeah, Philly is a better team. They really are.
On paper.
On paper.
But on paper, they don't account for you quitting on your coach. On paper, they don't quit on they don't account for when's AJ Brown's next meltdown. On paper, they don't account for, I don't know, a running back who hasn't played a complete season since his rookie year. On paper, they don't account for losing a future Hall of Fame center. But I will say one thing. This is in Philly's favor. I agree with everything Zappy said, by the way. From a talent-based standpoint, they have that. They do. They do. I'm just not convinced that Nick Sirianni is the guy to see this through and get them to that next level. When you get quit on, I can't believe that with the first sign of adversity, things are just going to be all good. They do give me the dream team vibes. What I think is interesting, and Zappy might appreciate this part of it, Dallas, whether it be rival fan bases or their own fans, were very critical of Jerry Jones not exactly going all in, as he said. But this is an interesting thing, right? With Dallas. So you have a new defensive coordinator. It's a make or break year for real this time with Mike and Dak. And dare I say that the most wealthy team in the NFC and probably, I believe, the NFL for that matter,
in all sports,
is a little under the radar. Dare I say that? Because this is the thing. No team has repeated in this division in damn near 20 years. That's what the Cowboys will be. That's what the Cowboys will be trying to do. Be the first in that time span to repeat as division champions, and then hopefully, for their sakes, go further. And I'll be honest, I saw both Dallas and Philly games last year. I get it. The Eagles had improved that secondary. I understand that. But I also understand that CeeDee Lamb coming into this particular year may be the best receiver in professional football when it's all said and done. I believe that he has elevated his game to that level where you have to start putting him in that breath. And I'm not going to lie, dude. I kind of like the committee approach in the backfield for those Cowboys. Dak Prescott doesn't have to fling the ball around 80 times. I'm not saying that he's not going to have those blow-up games, but I think the difference between this Cowboy team versus last year's Cowboys team, this year's Cowboys team is going to be able to get the hard yards.
We're gonna take the blows early, though. I will say that about this Cowboys team.
Building an offensive line from the ground up, yes, indeed.
Yeah, and hey, Tyler Guyton, congratulations. You have to face Myles Garrett week 1. Welcome to the NFL, if anything, But no, when I look at Dallas' schedule, Cleveland, that could be a win or a loss. That's why it's a 1 point in favor of Dallas. I think the reason why Dallas can pull that off is because Deshaun Watson, yet again, yes, he played some last year, but really he has not played much football in 3.5 years.
I extend the sentiments for any NFC East team playing those Cleveland Browns because I think they were a more feared opponent with veteran former Super Bowl MVP Flacco. With Watson, to your point, Zap, that's part of the reason why my way too early. I think the Cleveland Browns, this is way, way, way too early. The Cleveland Browns are going to finish last in that division because of the sheer fact that out of all the teams, he's the quarterback that I trust the least.
I have them as an 11-6 team right now. I have that whole division winning 10 or more games. But because of their defense, because of Nick Chubb coming back, because
I know how good their defense could be.
But what Kevin Stefanski was able to do with 4 separate quarterbacks still cannot go unnoticed whatsoever. But yeah, as far as Dallas, like I was saying, look, Cleveland week 1, I think right now I have it as a W, barely. Only it's a hard one right now.
My issue with the Stefanski success thing, I get it, and I agree with you. He did that with Baker Mayfield a couple of years ago. He did that with all kinds of guys last year. But that one guy that he didn't do it with that had a very minimal impact on last year is indeed Deshaun Watson. And that's the thing that has me worried. Because I'll be honest with you. After coming back from what he went through and what that whole ordeal, and I ain't pitching him as no victim either. I'm just saying that whole circus that went on with Deshaun Watson, I'm not convinced that he's ever going to be back to the player that he was in 2020. And if he isn't at least even 70% of that player, the Cleveland Browns have a big problem because they reset the market on that guy. All the Giant fans are bitching and moaning about Daniel Jones. And, oh, my God, these contracts are out of control. You can thank the Cleveland Browns for that.
I mean, I'm going to argue against your point because he was 4-1 as a
good because I don't want to agree.
He was 4-1 as a starter last year with Cleveland. So yeah, he was 4-1. I have it right here. He started the first 3 games, went 2-1. And then after that, it was Thompson, Robinson, and Walker all the way up until week 9.
May I please?
10 was Watson.
May I get those opponents that if you have them at your?
No, I want to see the stats.
Stats or not? Well, no. I think it goes back to my point that they had a damn good defense, and when they had good quarterback play, they didn't have to be great quarterback play, just decent. This team lost Nick Chubb week 1 of the season. I can't go to sleep on this team. I can't go to sleep on this division whatsoever, really, if you look at it.
It was either week 2 or 3. I know it wasn't week 1.
It was week 2. Sorry. He completed week 1. But then,
it was that early, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was that
early. That's a shame. So I really do hope that he comes all the way back.
Yeah, he went out on his 10th carry of week 2 against the Steelers.
I saw the play. That was really rough to see.
But no, this whole AFC North team, I mean, there's a reason why the AFC North has some of the hardest schedules in the NFL, right there with the NFC East. But when I look at this Browns team, I mean, they were good with Watson. Statistically speaking, they probably weren't that great. But as a fan, I'm gonna take wins over statistics any day. I don't care if my quarterback passes for 450, 4 touchdowns, and we lose. I could care less. Fantasy perspective, yeah, I care about that, but not when it's my team. But no, I've got to say, Kevin Stefanski bringing back that defense, having Nick Chubb come back, and then going out and getting. I mean, I would say Jerry Jeudy is a better number 2 to Amari Cooper than what they had before.
All this stuff sounds good. It does. But in a quarterback-driven league, I need to trust Deshaun Watson, and I don't. And those wins that you take over whatever, they were in the month of September. I don't trust Deshaun Watson. I don't trust him to play at a high level in that town when the weather is terrible. I don't trust him.
I don't either.
Do you understand how egregious it is that a guy, father of, I don't know, not quite on Phillip Rivers territory, but a guy who had a lot of kids, comes off his couch after literally doing nothing than holding a clipboard or holding a hoagie or holding a remote, comes off his couch, does what he did, and made Deshaun Watson an afterthought. I don't trust Deshaun Watson.
I don't either.
But to your point, the teams that Flacco had to do it against were not exactly headliners, except for one team. But
one thing I do know, he lit up a very good New York Jets defense.
Yeah. But again, going back to Dallas and Philly, right now I look at Philly's schedule. I see them as a 12-5 team, 13-4 probably. In Dallas, I see them as a 12-5 team, 11-6, as low as 8-9. But even if the most I see is winning is 12. And even if we're right there neck and neck with Philly, it's going to come down to that Week 17 game in Philly that I think Philly is probably going to win. And I still can't find more than 5 losses on Philly's schedule. I really can't. I get your points about quitting on your team and all that. But, I mean, I think everyone knows that Nick Sirianni is a better head coach when he has the right coordinators. If there's one thing I will say about him. But, the whole quitting on him and all that last year, I didn't like that either. I don't. But he was brought back for a reason. The guy is a smart coach. We can't take that away from him. But he needs to have the right coordinators in place. He has to. He can't do it all.
Well, he was also brought back because that Super Bowl appearance definitely buys you a little bit of time, similar to how in East Rutherford, the Coach of the Year thing and the surprise playoff run buys you a little time. And I also think that on some metrics, the Philadelphia Eagles potentially regret getting rid of Doug Peterson as quick as they did.
You're weird as stuff.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. Just my opinion. We both agree that quitting on your coach is no bueno. We both agree on that clearly.
No. Of course. I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do in any sport, unless you better have the best reason to do it, the best. But no, I don't ever agree on quitting on your coach.
I was going to try to save the last maybe 7-8 minutes to kind of plow over the happenings on the ice and the hardwood. So what I would like to start trying to get into now as a group, you kind of played that hand already, Zap. So you got the Eagles as the 1 seed, correct?
I still have to go over the Niners, the Lions, the Packers schedules to really get a feel for it. But just based off of looking at them, I feel pretty strong that the Lions and Packers are not going to get to 13 wins, and I'm positive that the Cowboys aren't, and I don't think the 49ers are going to either. 12-win teams possibly could be the Niners, could be the Packers and Lions, but again, I have to look at their schedules, and I think they actually each have favorable schedules, but they play each other twice, and that might be the reason why they end up with the 2 seed.
That is a good point about playing each other twice. I'm willing to say that the Philadelphia Eagles probably will get the 1 seed. I like Green Bay in the North as a solid 12-win team, and possibly a 2 seed at that. I do think the Detroit Lions addressed a lot of their weaknesses in their secondary, and it goes without saying that the two-headed punch at running back between Montgomery and Gibbs is very, very good. However, after seeing the way that their season ended last year, I'm not convinced that they're going to have that same golden opportunity to be that close to the Super Bowl again in a league that so very rarely sees teams go to back-to-back title games unless if your name is the San Francisco 49ers. And I personally think that the Green Bay Packers were a better team last year when it mattered most than the Detroit Lions. I think Dan Campbell cost the Detroit Lions a trip to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And while I understand that that's his style, we've had this conversation before. When he squandered the opportunity to do something that nobody did in last year's regular season, which is beat your team in Dallas, I said, okay, lesson learned, Dan. You can't do that again. And not only did he do it again, he did it on the highest level of NFC competition.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, that's a gut punch to not only his players, but to those fans that have waited so long. I don't think the Lions are a shoo-in to get as close as they were, especially when the Green Bay Packers had the second half that they had. I do think the Lions will qualify for a playoff berth. I still, you know what? No. I think the Los Angeles Rams are going to be neck and neck with those 49ers. And that really is a coin toss at this point. But if I have to pick one over the other, I think the Rams have been kind of cutting the gap on the Niners. And I'm going to come out and say that if Cooper Kupp can stay healthy, if their receiving corps could stay healthy, losing Aaron Donald's a big one. You can't really downplay that, even if they did do well in the draft. I'm going to still take the 49ers. I got the Rams as another wild card. I think your team is a strong wild card as well. But right now, that leaves who in the South? Some people really like Atlanta. I'm still taking Tampa.
Still taking Tampa.
Let me see. Let me look at how their schedules line out, because I'm supposed to agree and take Tampa, but I also picked Atlanta last year to win the division, and if they had a quarterback, they would win the division. You look at their schedule, ooh, they got it pretty rough. That's actually not too bad. They can actually very well win it just based off of their schedule and how easy it is. Now, looking at Tampa Bay's schedule, and one thing Atlanta has in their favor that Tampa Bay doesn't, Atlanta has Dallas. Tampa Bay has to go to Dallas.
That's interesting because I'm one of those people of the belief that Tampa actually plays better on the road. But
Tampa has to go to Kansas City, while Kansas City goes to Atlanta. Looking at the common games, both of them are going to end up with 10 wins, 10, 11 wins max, and they're both going to be. It's going to come down to whoever sweeps the Saints or whoever splits with the Saints. That's what it's going to come down to with those teams.
I don't have a high faith in the New Orleans Saints right now. If Derek Carr gets hurt, I even have less faith in them. Alvin Kamara is slowing down rather quickly compared to what we have known him to be. I love Chris Olave. I think he is quite the talent. When you lose Ramczyk, I understand you draft guys, but it's going to take time. That's a very physical division that I think a lot of times gets overlooked. Baker Mayfield, I'm going to get off that bad Baker, good Baker stuff. I'm just going to say Baker Mayfield is back. And Mike Evans, back as well.
Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin often hurt Chris Godwin. But I think if these Tampa Bay Buccaneers can stay healthy, I'm gonna give you a shout here to a particular player. If things go their way on the O-line and guys stay healthy and they play within themselves, I think Rachaad White may very quietly be a top 5 rusher this year.
Rachaad White is such a stud. He's such a stud of a running back.
Truly.
I'm going with Tampa Bay also because Baker's in the system another year. He basically got a sign off from Mike Evans because Mike Evans put the pen to the paper, said this is where I want to be, so he knows he has Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm.
If Godwin stays healthy, he got the 1-2 on the edges, and it's the O-line.
Yeah, and that's to Richie's point and your point about the O-line. Both teams are going to be relying on a rookie offensive lineman, with Tampa Bay getting Graham Barden and then the the Saints getting Talize Fuaga, who
Yeah.
that dude has got such a nasty.
I
punch if
think
you watch
he's
him
going to
go
be
out.
really good. He's got the
Yeah.
thing that he has to work on, in my opinion, and I could be wrong. I think his hips are a little stiff. But as far as just brute strength and also really good footwork for a big man, I do favor the Saints lineman over the Bucks lineman. I will give them that. That I will give them out of those two particular players.
But Graham's got such a nasty streak too, and why I favor Graham. I mean, he's the guy I wanted. Versatility, plays all positions.
And this
I
is the
always
cool
wanted
thing
that.
about a show like this. We could revisit this, like when, say, their first matchup or maybe their most vital matchup, possibly the second one, and we could kind of
We know what
track
Baker can do.
what
We
these
seen
kids are
last
doing.
year. We saw last year. Baker can do it. He turns it on. You can turn it on.
Let me tell you what, man.
That
Baker
is so funny to
gave
say
his
that.
team a chance to beat the Lions in Detroit last year. They did not go away.
Gentlemen, the NFL schedule has Week 18 as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the New Orleans Saints with
You
the
don't
only game
say.
that they don't have the time is to be determined.
Yeah, it makes
To
sense.
be TBD for the there's I have to go through everyone else's schedule, but even Dallas is the 49ers. Everyone doesn't have TBD. So I think we know it's coming down to the Saints and the Buccaneers just based off of that right there.
Yep. Should they flex the game or should they show it?
Or if you have a
Prime time or
three-team
whatever.
situation, and New Orleans stays the course, that was very close to happening last year too, where the Atlanta Falcons hung around longer than I think they probably should have.
Yeah.
Had they committed to running the football more with Algier, Robinson, and at the time, who's no longer a Falcon, Cordarrelle Patterson, still getting him in the mix. I do believe that the Falcons may have found themselves in the playoffs last year because that division, nobody wanted it for a while until Tampa season.
Yeah,
but
I wanted it.
Let me say this. I'm going to argue with myself about Atlanta. One thing that does scare me about this team, while yes, they are an improved team offensively, defensively, they are vulnerable at all three levels.
Yeah.
But what scares me about this team is, although I love Bijan Robinson, I've been a huge fan of Bijan Robinson. I love them coming out of Arizona. I love them at UT. Wanted him to drop to us, but he's already hurt. We're in OTAs already, and he's already hurt. That scares me. As if I'm a coach or a fan, that my running back is already having ankle issues in May, and things like that don't usually tend to turn out well for the upcoming season.
And that's why I don't worry about the Steelers the same way with Najee's injury history, because Warren is ready to make a big impact.
And
I don't even know if Najee's going to be dressing up for Pittsburgh this year. He might be a post June 1st trade.
That's a potential thing too.
He plays running back. He plays receiver.
He's just a natural athlete. And another thing too that's going to be interesting with players like Cordarrelle and players that have that skill set, a Curtis Samuel, those kind of players, is that the kickoffs are going to be more entertaining now because it was a big element of what people missed. A big element of what people missed, it was eliminating the kickoff.
And you know what? Because of that reason, because the NFL is going to the UFL/XFL style of XFL, UFL, is the fact that not only did the Steelers go out and get a Cordell Patterson, but now the talks about putting Justin Fields in kick returns as well, because now you throw into the simple fact that Justin Fields has the field vision to be able to return kicks. We know this already. We've seen him run the ball. But you throw in the fact of the trickery of him running and then stopping and throwing the pass to Cordell. When you think about the fact that the kickoff team now has to wait till the ball is catched and you have a lot more time to get a play developed. Oh man, that's going to be the fun stuff. Is if we see both those two back there returning kicks.
I will say this though, while it's going to be exciting, the other side of that. Two things that it's going to be on the uptick on kickoffs: turnovers and injuries. Turnovers and injuries, it's unavoidable. The turnovers is going to be interesting because kickoffs, to your point, Zappy, and this is what another interesting caveat that a lot of people don't just naturally bring up. Say if you're on the bubble team that's maybe like, yeah, these guys are like an 8-win team, let's say.
Mhm.
But if you have legit special teams, that could be the difference. And that in itself brings a bit of excitement that we haven't seen in quite some time. And per usual,
Mhm.
in today's NFL, anybody that tries to make a living by tackling somebody stays at a constant disadvantage and make no difference. They're adding it to the special teams as well. I mean, pretty soon, why don't they just make the field 120 yards?
And widen it 60.
Yeah,
Like-
dog.
like
because
the
because the disadvantages that defenses are getting is kind of egregious. We're on
Yeah.
the 5 minute. We're into the 5 minute mark. So what I'm going to suggest is we're going to finish strong with the AFC East. Listen, no offense to the other teams in the AFC West, but everybody knows that barring a Patrick Mahomes injury, the Chiefs are going to be the big dog in the AFC that somebody's trying to knock down.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. As at the conclusion of this show, we are immediately going to Instagram. All I got to do is just open my phone, and we're going to keep this computer open. And we are going to finish the short talk on the hardwood as well as the ice. That should take all of about 10 minutes. But I'm not going to shorten this football conversation to go over something that already happened. Go ahead, Zach.
All right. So week one, last 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Week one, there's a lot of intriguing matchups. We're talking about, Jackson Mahomes, Love Hurts. What the hell am I doing over here? The Rams in Detroit on
You
Sunday
threw
Night
me off
Football.
when you said Jackson Mahomes because I didn't think of Lamar, and I thought about that turd of a brother that Patrick has.
Oh,
And then I
yeah.
go
That
Love
threw
Hurts
me
right
off.
after that.
Yeah, that threw me off bad.
Which of those 4 matchups between all the primetime games, and we'll throw the NFL game of the week, Dallas at Cleveland, 5 great quarterback matchups. Which of those 5 are you most excited about for week one?
To be
Or
honest,
you could throw in CJ Stroud going against Anthony Richardson, whichever you like.
that could potentially be a good one, but I have a funny feeling that in terms of just offensive firepower, Miami, Buffalo, because it's week one and they're not all going to be all the way in. That's week 2.
That's Thursday Night Football. I didn't realize I put SNF. It was supposed to be say TNF week 2. That was my fault.
No worries.
But no, the Sunday Night Football game is the Rams Lions in Detroit.
Last year was a low-scoring playoff game, which I think surprised almost all of us.
Yeah.
That has the potential to be a track meet because everybody should be healthy. You hope that you get through the preseason. The preseason's been so diluted now that week 1 is almost like week 4 of the preseason, except it counts now. But you get the 17th game, kind of make it up. But Stafford against the former Lion against the former Ram, Goff, got traded for each other. They're always going to be linked to each other. Stafford got his. Will Goff get his? And that's how you're going to be able to define who won that trade. Right now, the Rams lead that trade, but Jared Goff has definitely resurrected his career.
I look at that game, and as if you guys remember back to 2018, there was this possible Super Bowl matchup between the Rams and the Chiefs. The final score was 54-51.
Yeah.
I do remember that game.
That's because that game is week 1, and because we saw a defensive great game. The city of Detroit, first playoff win. Welcome back, Matthew Stafford. We're not going to let you get it. It's going to be the opposite. I agree. I think this is going to be a high scoring.
Now that game is in Detroit, Zap?
It's in Detroit.
Even better.
Exactly.
Yes. And if you look at the Detroit Lions the past couple of seasons, they've had some serious shootouts in the month of September. 2 years ago, they came within inches of beating the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, they
just had a little bit of a defense.
Last year, they had a September shootout. I think it was week 2, actually, against the Seattle Seahawks. But the point I'm getting at is the Lions in December, a lot of shootouts. Now, the defense can be better. But I tell you, man, you talk about just great talent all over the field. You got Puka Nacua. You've got Cooper Kupp. You've got Kyron Williams, our man out of Notre. Then on the other side, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, the two-headed monster at running back.
Not to mention
it has
Jameson
the
Williams healthy.
Jameson Williams healthy. Good shout. And yeah, it's like the perfect storm for something that could resemble an Arena Football League game.
I'm so hyped. I'm so hyped.
No,
I'm so far away.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
so
it's
hyped.
gonna. I'll tell you what's made this a little more tolerable. What's made this way more tolerable with waiting for football is the fact that all three of my New York teams are really playing well right now. New York Yankees got a shutout 4-0 victory, their second consecutive victory against the Twins. They are riding a winning streak.
Hey,
Now,
shout out Aaron Judge. 4 for 4 today, a 460-foot, 7-foot bomb, and
Fine
then
as
3
rules.
doubles. I'm not a fan of the Yankees, but I love watching Aaron Judge. Okay, I love watching Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, but Aaron Judge, man, like what a bounce back! What is that? His 11th home run of the season. This
Fine
guy's
as
going to
rules.
be in MVP talks, and he's probably going to be AL MVP.
And you truly had morons in our fan base who were writing him off. And this is another interesting
Yeah.
caveat to that conversation, Zach.
Hey, I didn't write him off. All I said was he should go to the number 2. But good job on.
Well, no,
I'll
we
tell
got-
you.
we
I'll
got
tell you what.
fans that wrote him off.
Well, I'm not including you because you're not a Yankee fan. I'm talking about people in my own fan base
Yeah.
that were writing this guy off. Now, but this is an interesting caveat. Similar to the race of 61, where you had Maris and Mantle with the home run thing, Soto's not going to be in the home run thing. But what he is going to be in, you could have a scenario where 2 teammates are fighting it out for the MVP, which could actually hurt both their causes.
I think, as crazy as this might sound, you might see a scenario where Judge could possibly enter the Triple Crown conversation. And if Juan Soto's bat gets back to as the way we saw it early in, where we see Soto being the guy that prevents him from getting the RBI or the hitting average.
Last time this happened in Yankee lore in my lifetime, because obviously the Maris Mantle thing was way before my life, Dave Winfield, Don Mattingly, last day of the season, both going for the batting title. It would have been Mattingly's second consecutive, and Dave Winfield just edged him out. Thank you for watching. If you want to hear more of this conversation, which is going to be around a little 10 minutes of bonus here, we will be on Instagram in just a moment. If not, have a great night, everyone, and thank you for hanging with us. We out for now. The NFL schedule release is out. Make your plans, but don't overpay. Take your time. They like to get everybody off that initial emotion. You have time to buy your tickets. Don't go freaking out and buying everything. You got plenty of time, guys. Let's see how your teams do, because that also drops the prices. Until next time, I'm Richie. He's Zappy. He's Idris. And we'll see you in just a moment on IG. We out.